Welcome to the best of first-person episodes from Phantoms and Monsters. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you'll be notified of all future uploads.
Red-eyed upright canine encountered in Wise River, Montana. This incident occurred along the Wise River in Montana. I live alone, and in this remote location we don't have cable, so the only option is satellite TV. It was a humid summer night in July 2015 at around 11:30 p.m., and the TV was acting up, so I needed to go out and readjust the satellite like usual. I took a flashlight and a gun with me. When I went outside it was unusually quiet. I also purchased an Arkansas due to other sightings I've had, but they weren't credible enough to chalk it up as a Dogman. It was so silent it was unnerving. I brushed the thought off and went to the dish, which is in the corner of my yard. I went to work, making sure all the wires were alright and pointing it to a different angle. Suddenly I heard a small snap of a stick to my left and turned the flashlight to the direction, and I saw a creature standing there. I got a good look at it for what seemed like an eternity, but was for only about 10 seconds. I slowly backed off and ran back to the house and locked all the doors and windows. The creature was unlike anything I have ever seen before. When I shined the light at it, the first thing I saw was the head. It has cropped ears that pointed upwards. Its snout was narrower than a bear's and longer, and I could make out large teeth protruding from the jaw. Its eyes were a deep red shade that seemed to reflect off the light I was pointing at it. The body was muscular and huge. It had long arms that appeared to be longer than its legs, broad shoulders that tapered into a skinnier waist. It was slightly crouched over when I saw it, with one hand wrapped around a small tree. I could make out the legs, which looked similar to a dog's legs. It had obvious hocks. Even with the crouched position, it was about my height, which is 6 foot. Standing up to full height, this creature could easily be 7.5 feet tall. The fur was black and thicker around the neck and chest, and the bottom half significantly less so. I don't know if it was aggressive or not. What I know is I had a feeling of dread unlike anything I've ever experienced. Was it just observing me or stalking me? For a creature this large, it was deceivingly silent. It got within 15 yards of me without me noticing. All I knew was I needed to get out of there and not find out. I don't live on the property anymore, but after the event I never had another face-to-face encounter. But I would hear sounds in the woods I couldn't explain. They would start off relatively quiet, and work their way up to furious howls, screams, then back down to quiet again. I don't know if this was the same thing because it could be local wildlife. RC.
Shocking upright canine encounter in Michigan's eastern Upper Peninsula. My encounter happened on deer season opening day in November of 2013 in the eastern Upper Peninsula of Michigan on family hunting property near a town called Cedarville. The house where my husband and I were staying in had a big front yard, but other than that cleared area and the gravel driveway, everything else is pretty deep hardwood forest. I also want to state ahead of time that this happened at around 11 p.m., so everything that's beyond the porch lights was pretty hard to see. My husband and I had gone outside to have a cigarette, and we took our rifle out with us whenever we were hanging around outside, because there's bear and stuff back there in that area. I was up on the porch still, and my husband had gone down the steps into the yard and was facing towards me when we heard these really heavy, slow footsteps coming up the driveway through the woods. It sounded like a really big man, but there was this weird heavy breathing too. Even though the footsteps sounded like a person, sounded heavier than anything I had ever heard walking in the woods, including full-sized adult bear. My husband looked at me and mouthed WTF, and I was trying to figure out what it was that I was hearing. But nothing I had ever heard out there in those woods matched the size and breathing and gait of whatever this was. So I was confused and shaking my head. My husband isn't a hunter and grew up in the city, so he was completely confused too. I've hunted and tracked basically everything that's indigenous to northern Michigan since I was small, so I was honestly terrified that this animal was a complete unknown to me by sound. It walked out of the tree line at the edge of the yard behind my husband, and it was a lot taller than him, at least 7 foot tall or more, and I'd estimate the weight for its size at around 400 pounds. It was on 2 legs and had super dark black fur that was somehow even darker than the nighttime dark of the woods. It was walking back and forth at that distance from us the whole time this encounter happened, but it would not step into where the perimeter of the porch light was. I had a really hard time making out its torso for that reason. but I saw a wolf-like head and snout with pointed ears that stuck straight up. Instead of front legs and paws, it had really disproportionately long arms and hands. It was on two legs this whole time, walking back and forth. I freaked out and grabbed the rifle and just started shooting at it and yelling at my husband to run and get up on the porch. So he did, and then he took the gun from me and told me to find something to use as a weapon and to go inside and hide, so I did. I got a big knife and went and locked myself in our bedroom in the closet, and could hear my husband shooting and reloading a bunch for about another 10 minutes. He came in and told me through the closet door that the creature had finally run off, but he wasn't sure if it was going to possibly come back, so we were both pretty terrified. I ended up staying in that closet all night until sunrise with my husband guarding the door with the gun. He told me that he thought I had hit it when I was shooting at first, but the next day we didn't find any blood or hair or anything, which I thought was weird, because I really thought I must have shot and wounded it a couple times. It moved incredibly fast though, and was agile enough to run through the brush and stuff without really mowing it down, or making a bunch of noise like big animals usually do running through dense underbrush and stuff. The whole encounter was incredibly weird and scary. My husband also said that he did see it sort of hunch over and drop down onto all fours a few times while it was running back and forth at the edge of the yard, but that when it ran away for good that night, that it was running insanely fast and on two legs like a man. We didn't smell anything bad like a lot of people describe when they see these things, and it didn't even leave any noticeable tracks anywhere, even though the thing was so heavy when it was walking up the gravel driveway that I swore the ground near it must have been shaking. We found out later from one of the neighbors that he had seen it too next door the winter before, when it came up on the porch of his cabin and looked in the door window during a party he and his wife had been throwing. He said he heard really heavy footsteps on the porch and pulled back the curtain on the window, and the creature was standing there on the other side of the glass looking down at him, but that its fur was white then. I think that's probably because there was snow on the ground at this point in the year. My neighbor hollered at everyone in the cabin and told them what he had just seen, and then everyone decided to make a run for it through the woods to his mom's house next door, since her place was a lot sturdier than the hunting cabin. I've known that neighbor my whole life, practically since high school, and he would never make something like that up. He was scared even while he was just talking about it. I also read somewhere online recently that another family about 45 miles north of our area had a bunch of livestock like cows and horses turn up dead and torn up by some kind of big predator. One of the guys in the family saw a giant upright wolf back near his hunting blind during deer season, which of course freaked me out, since we had our experience on the season opener. The land butting up to that family's property is hundreds of miles of the Hiawatha National Forest, so it would make sense to me that a big animal would hide in and near a protected area like that when it's hearing gunshots everywhere else. My lot and my neighbor's lot also are right alongside state land. My husband and I moved since this all happened, but the experience was so upsetting to me that I constantly research online to see if anyone else has seen this thing up north, and what their encounter was like and stuff. I've even heard that there's a small pack of about 4 or 5 of them that live in state forest downstate in Isabella County. A bunch of locals in the nearby area have seen, and that somebody even saw one at night in downtown Saginaw, Michigan. What scares me about that is the fact that there's no tree cover there, as that's a city. I wonder if people all over the state are seeing these animals because they're getting forced out of their usual hunting territories due to hunting, logging and mining that's really increased over the years here. Be careful out there, everybody. TD.
Upright Canine chases witnesses near Danbury, Wisconsin. My sighting occurred southeast of our cabin near Danbury, Wisconsin. The cryptid was very wolf-like, and it definitely was not a bear. As well as I'm pretty sure wolves don't run upright. So I was 17 at the time. It was midsummer and we were at our cabin in northwest Wisconsin. I was with my cousin and grandparents for the weekend. I brought my airsoft gear. So me and my cousin are in mid-airsoft battle. I took it more seriously than him. I was decked out in full BDU woodland camo, including the Shema. I retreated into the forest for better tactical advantage. So the way our land was set up is there is a trail that cuts around the border of the almost acre of owned forest. Our skirmish took us about 200 meters into the woods going up the right trail. So I'm a huge outdoorsman. I was introduced to hunting and survival training as well as firearms at a young age. I also had been practicing MMA for a few years at that point. The point is I'm not easily scared and I'm comfortable in the wild. Now I'm 25 and have even more training. I respect the wild a lot more now. I was cocky back then. Anyway, here is where things get strange. Our battle had ended and we were standing at the edge of a slightly clearer area of forest and just talking. On the other side of the clearing is a hill that goes down to a small pond. Animals are a common sight around there as it's a watering hole. Now, as any experienced outdoorsman will know, most small animals will go about their business even when humans are around. Birds will still chirp and weten it. But when a big predator is around, the forest goes dead quiet. So me and my cousin are talking and I decided to freak him out. So I shushed him and whispered, "We're being watched." He got quiet. Then I realized that it was dead quiet, not even birds chirping anymore. Then I got that feeling. You know, when you feel like you are being watched. I went into hunter mode at this point and started scanning the clearing. I went from right to left then back. On the second look through I saw it. Its teeth are what gave it away as they contrasted with the background. Once I focused on it, I noticed a canid appearance in the head. It had dark reddish brown hair fur. Where it gets even stranger is it was leaning on a tree and had its front left arm gripping the tree. It appeared to have claws, and it was panting and staring in our direction with its ears up listening, while kneeling or crouching. I recognized it as a threat, as a predator immediately. Now this all happened in the span of maybe 10 seconds before I said to my cousin, "We have to go." He was a faster runner than me. When I said that I was still watching the animal, my cousin took off. When he ran, the animal raised up and ran towards us. It took a good 3 steps on 2 legs before I started to run. As I was turning to run, it appeared to have possibly been going to all 4s. I got to the fork in the trail to find my cousin waiting. I yelled, "Go, go, 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 go." And we ran back to the cabin. While running out, I could hear it crashing through the woods behind me, but it didn't follow beyond the tree line. At the time I thought it had the intention to do harm, but now that I look back on it, I think it was just being either territorial or it was a bluff charge. Most animals can easily outrun humans on foot. If it really wanted one of us, it would have got us. I have tried to explain it away as being a bear or a big wolf, but what I saw just does not add up. It just wasn't a known animal. I'm still stumped by it. I was recently added to a group of people who have had similar sightings. They say mine falls in line with other sightings. They believe it to be a dogman, which I think is the cheesiest name they could have chosen, but I admit that what I saw is very similar, if not the same, as what others have claimed to see. I have different theories regarding the creature though. I am normally very skeptical. However, I know that what I saw was not normal, and I am less skeptical than I used to be now. I am still nervous about the forests. I don't go into the woods alone or unarmed anymore. I'm not scared of any man, but I certainly don't want to see anything that looks like a werewolf again. By the way, all of this happened in broad daylight. If it wasn't clear, T.
This is Lon Strickler. If you like this program, it would help us if you would give it a thumbs up. Then subscribe and click the bell icon so you get notification when we upload new first-person encounters. We have many more to come very soon. And by the way, if you have a suggestion or an experience of your own, please leave a comment.